Hopefully you guys have been having a good day. And it's really fitting, actually, that I'm presenting at the same time as Airbnb, because the first thing I was going to start with was telling you a bit about the company, because context is everything. And so when people ask me, hey, Sandra, who do you work for? And I say Ciena, the first thing I get is, how do you spell that? And I hear my kids, no matter where we are, Ciena, because they've had to spell it so many times. It is an entirely business-to-business company. And it is, unless you are responsible for the network in a high-tech company, a technology company, telecommunication company, or any other enterprise, you would know who we are, because we sell entirely from a business-to-business perspective. So you can also get into your mindset that what we do is we sell technology, solutions, consulting, services. And the context is important, because when you're talking about culture, you need to understand the culture you're dealing with. I've been at this company now for 22 years, and I started in design. And I went through from design to product management into customer experience. So I've been around for a long time, but most of the people that I work with have been there for far longer. So today I just wanted to talk to you about some of the experience that we had recently in making the case for change within our company that's been around for a long time, and is really full of extremely innovative folks, and that's why we're successful, but very, very technology focused. So let me set the stage a little bit more. We have been, Ciena, and up until 5 months ago, we were known as our purpose and promise as the network specialist. About a year ago, as our executives started to understand more and more about how the industry was changing for our customers and the incredible challenges they were having, think about the telecom companies, for example, who are facing competition from companies like Google and Facebook, who are getting into so many other environments of incredible competition. Our executive team office started realizing, you know what we're actually helping our customers with is so much more than just selling some really great product. They informed themselves in a whole bunch of ways. Our branding team went out there and talked to executive in the customer base. They talked to our executives about what we want to be when we grow up. They interviewed employees, and they also leaned on the experience feedback through all of our voice of customer pieces. And they came to the conclusion that we were really good at focusing on the customer experience and driving the right outcomes for our customers. So they decided to rebrand our company, continue to be Ciena, but to restate our purpose and promise. We are a company that really delivers and is focused and inspiring, enabling experiences that lead to exceptional outcomes. So they also came out with all the pieces that drove much more connectivity to our customers. And it was very interesting to understand the reactions and to watch the reactions of the multitude number of engineers and computer scientists in the room and at the company. So we're about 6,000 folks. We're a $3 billion company. How many of you know engineers or computer scientists? So, okay. I would love for you to stand right now in their shoes and think about all the typical things that you know about engineers and computer scientists. And to be fair, I can say this because I'm a computer scientist who also studied mechanical engineering. So just put yourself back into their shoes as you listen to this video and think about, give me feedback on how you think they reacted to Ciena's newly declared purpose and promise. And don't forget, this was all built on what we knew we were good at. But think about how they reacted when they saw this new storyline that was shown to them at the all hands and is available on our Ciena.com.
Who are we without our experiences? Experiences move us, educate us, connect us to one another. Can technology be the catalyst of experience? Ciena believes that it can, that how we experience technology has everything to do with how we experience life. So we apply technology in the context of your world, working to activate your agenda as though it were our own. It stems from our human commitment, our belief in the power of choice. Because with Ciena people and technology behind your network, we all are at the heart of the world's most rewarding experiences that result in exceptional outcomes. It's who we are, it's where we've been, and it's where we're going. It's the passion we bring to every experience. Ciena. Experience. Outcomes.
Any guesses as to how our engineers and computer scientists might have reacted to what I think is a super inspirational video? Any thoughts? Confused. Really? Our technology is allowing babies to laugh? I don't really understand the point of this video. There was a big group who said, wow, that's fantastic. I feel good. It makes me feel good. And that must make the customers feel good. So that's great. But what we actually saw
Who are we without
was three things. We went out, the brand team approached us and they said, you know, we'd really like to see how it's been received. And by the way, when you redeclare your purpose and promise, always do it way before with your employees, because you want to know how much buy-in there is and how tall they're going to stand and how they're going to live that new purpose and promise. So we went and we did this probably 6 months before the official launch, which was about 5 months ago. So we went out and we asked the employees, well, how do you feel? How are you? Where's your mindset around the newly declared purpose and promise, which, by the way, is how we were living every day anyway. And the findings were very interesting. I know Ciena's purpose and promise. That's green. Everybody, you know, yeah, I watched the videos. I read the pieces of branding that you had. It's all good. I've got it. And I'm mostly motivated to deliver on that purpose and promise. I mean, I understand that I want to deliver the best possible experience for my customer and for their end customer. And I know that I want to deliver amazing business outcomes for them. And that's what I do every day. So I'm fairly motivated. But I don't feel so empowered. I mean, this is like really high vision statements. I can understand what it means to be a network specialist, but what does it mean to be connected to experience and outcomes? So we looked at that and said, well, I'm surprised, but not so surprised. And the branding team was a little bit shocked. I don't understand. Everything said, all the indications said, this is really who we are. So I'm a little bit surprised by so many folks saying they don't feel empowered to deliver on this purpose and promise. So they got us involved, and we went out and we started talking to the executives, more like the senior managers and vice presidents in the R&D space, and the back office folks. And they said, we asked them, like, so what would it take for your teams to feel really empowered to deliver on this purpose and promise? So they said, well, really need more context. I need to understand, my team needs to understand why expectations are changing from a customer's perspective. Why is this why did we have to change it from the network specialist? We were so comfortable. What are the reasons why we need to start really focusing not just on product, but also on experience and outcomes? Others said, you know what, it's nice to hear it from others, but we really want more direct customer feedback. We don't get it all the way down to the engineer level. We need to really understand that more specifically so that we can live it and understand what they need from an experience and an outcomes perspective. Believe it or not, some folks said, we don't think that in those areas where you say we're not doing great, that we're really not doing great. Imagine that. Imagine the mirror doesn't perfectly reflect the right image. So, you know, even though you say, and for those of us who've seen the experience feedback, even though there's areas you say we need to fix, we don't think we're really that bad. So you need to convince us. And the other group of folks said, you know what, my guys, they're technical people. They're busy building stuff. They don't need to know this whole purpose and promise stuff. They're not interested. They're completely disconnected, and it's fine. Don't worry about it. They'll build what they need to build, and they'll carry on as they were going on. So we had some challenges, and the HR team and the branding team, and we understood that we all need to be rallying around one purpose and promise, and it wasn't enough for them to know it. They needed to know how they could impact it. And in a back office, it's not such an easy job to understand exactly how you own the experience and outcomes. So we decided together with HR and the branding team that we had a couple goals. The first is, of course, we had to deepen the understanding of the Ciena brand. And they were really, at the beginning, to be honest, the branding team was very focused on that they need to understand what the brand is. They need to understand branding, the principles of branding. And so we had lots of discussions around, well, where that would take us and why that would be valuable or why it wouldn't be valuable. We had also HR saying, you know what, we also want them to have better conversations together. We need to start working across silos. And we had conversations around how we could get there around the purpose of what a brand is. And then we realized that actually what we really could do is put it in the vehicle of the customer experience. What a better way to understand the experience and outcomes focus, not just for our customers, but also for our employees, if we actually talked about the customer experience and not the brand as a vehicle. We had really 3 business outcomes we were focused on, because you've got to have business outcomes, otherwise why do it, right? So we had, you know, to continuously improve the customer experience. We wanted to see an improvement in employee engagement on the brand itself, and we wanted to see the brand perform even better out in the marketplace. We also realized that if we were going to be speaking about experience and outcomes, it could not be our typical classroom slide projection that would bore everybody to tears and no one would take anything from it. And that the people we were trying to engage were exceptionally intelligent. They don't want to be told stuff. They need to experience stuff. So what we did was we created a very, very hands-on workshop, but we utilized all of the disciplines of the customer experience methodologies and approaches, which are like approaches they had never seen before. We took, basically, we took all of the personas we'd pulled together and really made them come to life. We took, we had a whole bunch of context cards that talked about the industry and the changes so that they could discuss those and they themselves could come to the conclusion of what needed to change within Ciena in order to be able to react to how the industry was changing. We took them through the customer experience roadmap in a very physical way that they had to lay out and identify which functions were involved in each part of those parts of the journey and identify themselves as indirectly or directly impacting the journey. And a lot of the realizations were, holy moly, Sandra, I had no idea so many of us were involved in delivering that part of the journey. And guess what? I'm in there and I've never spoken to any of the other functions that are part of that journey or part of that touch point. And then we gave them, of course, the roadblocks. We gave them the roadblocks that our customers were encountering so that they themselves could step through it and live through the entire journey as our customer did. It came alive for them, but we didn't have to present anything. We could stand on the side of the room and watch them go through it and discuss and engage. And they had to, together as a team at each table of cross-functional people that had been working on the same value chain for a product but had never met. Even though they'd been working in the same site for 20 years, on the same product line, in the same value chain, had never met and never spoke, they had to work together to solve the problem and come up with solutions. But we took it further because, of course, when engineers and computer scientists sit down and back office folks sit down to solve a problem, they're always focused on the process, the methodology, what needs to be fixed. So we took it a step further and we had them identify, okay, you've got a solution that you worked out in a cross-functional team. Now, let's talk about your sphere of influence. How are you going to make this happen? They had to put themselves at the center of this world and determine who are the direct people they could influence in their day-to-day jobs and who else on the sites and the global company that they could start reaching into to solve this common problem, this roadblock. And frankly, I was really scared when we decided to design this, and I thought, these guys were never going to go along with it. Like, they're just, don't talk to me about my sphere of influence. They don't think that way. They were so applied and so interested and came out with a resolution, an understanding of their role, and an understanding of how they could influence all of those folks around the table and those who weren't even anywhere near their site. So how did it look like? It turned into a really intense collaboration, discussion, and discovery journey. We took this workshop across the world, Gurgaon, Mumbai, many places within the States, in Canada, in Ottawa, and San Jose, and we went to Brazil and did it in Sao Paulo and in Mexico City. And so it's been around, and it's working in every case because it wasn't about us telling them, it was about them figuring it out together and working through it as a team, as a cross-functional experience. So at the end of the day, we asked them, would you recommend this? And here's the feedback they gave us. They told us that, you know what, in my function, it's really difficult to understand how I could impact the experience, and now I get it. They told us that it was important for them to finally meet all these people and all these other functions who are also part of that experience, and they really valued that, and they valued the relationship that it built. And it was really interesting to see it because these were exactly the better conversations that HR was hoping for in the context of customer experience. And they were able to take a step back, and I love this quote. It's my favorite quote. Just like in my personal life, sometimes I need to take a step back and understand the big picture and breathe and think about what I could do differently. And that was a really very common theme around a lot of the comments we got. But the most important thing was when we asked them what they valued about it, and they said it was the collaboration and the deepened understanding. How are we going to keep this going, the momentum? So we're going to continue doing the workshops. The next ones are happening in Belfast and in London. We're doing quarterly webinars with whoever attends so that we can actually arm them. So you saw a journey map? Well, here's the journey map methodology. You saw personas? Well, here's how you could create your own personas with the stakeholders that you interact with. We provide consulting, and if we've had lots of people say, hey, you know what, I learned so much and I had this really cool idea, but I need to talk to other departments and I'm a little bit shy to go out there. And it's okay, we'll come in, we'll help facilitate, and we'll give you whatever tools you need to get there. We are providing them with product briefs of that we actually also share with our customers of any initiatives that have made meaningful improvement. And when I say meaningful, customer has had to notice. Right? You don't get grades for putting an initiative that the customer hasn't really felt, but we're all patting ourselves on the back because an internal KPI went up. But if the customer said, hey, you made a difference in my experience, we're sharing that information out to the employees so that they can understand that they've had impact directly. We're providing regular articles around our purpose and promise, and really how are we executing around that purpose and promise. And we're also digitizing the journey right now to allow it to live so that people can use it as a reference guide, and we're updating it on a regular basis with the voice of the customer. So at the end of the day, we'll be having another very large survey where we're going to test to see whether people feel more empowered. I'll let you know how that goes. But for us, it was a really interesting journey, and I wanted to share it because I think it's been successful. But most importantly, for us, it was a journey as well. We spend a lot of time telling people that they need to work cross-functionally, and we do often. But working with HR and branding was a whole other ballgame for us. It exposes a different level of synergy where we can tackle multiple focus points together, right? Empowerment, understanding of brand, HR, and cross-functional discussions, better conversations, and at the same time, an improvement in both the customer experience and the employee experience. And so it's been really valuable for us, and I hope that that's been a helpful example of something that's worked for us anyway. Any questions? Thank you. Yes.
I have a billion questions.
Oh.
Really impressive. My first two are how, it seems like it would be really hard to get people to go to these workshops. And hard to get people to go to the workshops. So first, how did you get people to go to them and set aside the time and not be stepping out and going to meetings, and how did you make that happen? And then the second one is, could you give an example of one of the roadblocks and sort of the influence? Something concrete would help me understand that a little bit better.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, great question. So yes, absolutely. Challenging to start getting people get their butts in the seats. So, you know what we did? We knew that pulling R&D folks off of their design schedule for an entire day, this is an entire day workshop, would be difficult. So what we decided to do was take the most critical group in the most critical region in the most outspoken team, and decided to run the first 2 pilots with them. Because we knew that if they endorsed it, the workshop was worthwhile. It would be easier to convince other folks across the world to join in going forward. And frankly, they were one of the teams that needed the most. So we started with them, rather than going to the friendlies, we went right for the toughest folks. The second thing was even for the pilot, getting them to agree to come, I had to do a lot of convincing to the managers. I had to set up multiple webinars to say, this is the value that I had to speak to the executives in those areas and say, this is the value your managers are going to have, and this is the value your employees will have. We did a manager session in the first pilot, and that was that toughest group of managers. And we did an employee pilot session right after. And then we used their feedback to generate the excitement around it. But I will say that no matter what site we go into, we make sure that we set up a webinar where we take for an hour all the managers through what they're going to get out of putting their employees through it. And sometimes it's a question of showing up. We have enough to fill one group. We know that as soon as we fill that workshop, that there will be demand that same week for others. So if we get the right people in the room, we know we're set up. We're like, okay, I'm going, I have one workshop, but I know if I get the right people in the room, they'll say, you're gonna pull in my whole team and you're gonna do this tomorrow. So that's how we've been doing it. You asked a question about roadblocks. Because we made sure that the roadblocks that we could share across the journey were very different in nature and were at different parts of the journey. So there might be, for example, the deployment team didn't really understand the requirements before they came in to start doing the deployment in my site. That could be a roadblock. And the teams get to pick whatever roadblock they feel together they could have the most impact on. But don't forget, they've just done the journey map and they've just understood all the pieces behind that deployment. So suddenly the R&D team realizes that the deployments are hard because their products are difficult to install. And the documentation team realizes that it's tough to deploy because the documentation is too difficult to find what you need at the right time. And the services folks, well, they feel like they own it, so they're totally bought in. So they will, because we introduce the roadblocks at the end and after they've identified all the functions, that quickly they can pick something that they all feel very strongly about. And then we have a methodology for brainstorming solutions around that particular roadblock. And then they can pick that roadblock or any other roadblock they feel more personally responsible for and draw that circle of influence of who would I talk to and who do I need to influence because they've suddenly made the realization they as a siloed organization can't do it themselves. There is no roadblock that still exists that one siloed organization could solve. Otherwise, they would have solved it, right? If they're easy to solve and it's one organization, they solve it. So it suddenly becomes very clear to them that they need to start engaging others within the company to solve whatever needs to be solved. Does that answer?
Yes, it does.
Just a quick question. I'm curious, it sounds like you progressed through the organization. Has Ciena always had a role such as yours in the organization?
No. I started, I guess the closest, if I could track back for a moment, at one point in Nortel, I used to work for Nortel, and the MEN department, my department, was purchased by Ciena. But at the time of Nortel's bankruptcy, for our division, our senior vice president said, oh my gosh, okay, the company's in bankruptcy, and we really need to sell our part of the business. And my phone is ringing off the hook from customers who are calling, who are saying, I ordered that one piece and I don't believe you're necessarily going to deliver it. And there's so much noise coming from customers and I just need to sell this so that we all have a job. We need some customer advocates. We need some cowboys and cowgirls out there who are going to go and do whatever it takes to make the customer happy and keep them calm while we get this done and we give them longevity with us. And he said, go get Sandra because she's loud and will do anything to make it successful. And I have seen her already in action and there was maybe 5 of us chosen at the time. And after we got bought, there was still need for customer advocacy because we had a 2,000-person company buying a 2,000-person division. Obviously, roles were changing, organizations were in flux. It still makes sense to have a customer advocate. And as a customer advocate, we would be dealing with the toughest escalations that no one could solve in their one siloed organization. After a while, and things started evening out, our executives, who are always 10 years ahead of me, said, you know what, this is great, but what we really need is a strategy. And there's something That was about 6 years ago, 5 years ago. There's something happening out there, or something around customer experience and strategy and defining it. And they decided to create a customer experience group. That was about 5, 6 years ago, and they gave that team to me. And that's what we've been evolving. It's a real journey. It's a long journey, and it's pushing that rock up the hill, 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but it's phenomenally interesting. I love it.
Thank you.
Sandra, thank you so much. We're at 4:10, so we'll switch off. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, guys.